Hello. This is Truth Be Told. Welcome back, Walter. It's been a while.
Yes, it's all me, man. I'm gonna admit to it. Yes. Okay, Kyle. You don't have to repeat after anything. No, it's been me. If everybody's looking, I had to move. I moved into a new house. The process, if you know me, took about 13 months, and I was miserable every single day, including move-in day. So I will tell you that it's good to be back. I miss this. My weekends were spent looking for furniture and stuff like that. So this is way better.
Well, we can thank Todd. Todd King is back with us today.
Yes.
He's the one he was very excited to talk to everybody about real estate. So he was actually pushing us to get this done. So that was the tipping point that made Walter finally decide to join us again.
Well, I appreciate you, Todd, because then my wife just ended up having to go shopping for lamps by herself. So thank you. I appreciate you, bro. I appreciate you more than you'll ever know.
Hey, one of the things, Dr. Walter, we talk about is estate management there, being miserable every day. We can't have that. Got to get you in a good state.
Then you shouldn't build a house, man. That's an easy solution. Just don't build a house. You'll be happy every day, man. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy. But no, I'm actually very, very excited, man. Thank you so much, Todd, for coming back onto the podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so we thought Todd would be a good person to talk about real estate, because last episode with him, he talked about his history with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and that's kind of where we're going to let Todd take over for a little bit. And first, tell us a little bit more about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and why that, kind of how that got you into real estate, and go from there.
Can I just say real quick, Todd, before you begin, I don't know anybody that doesn't know or hasn't read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. If you listen to us and have not read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you need to stop this podcast right now. Come back, of course, but stop, go read the book. And then, because it's going to change your life. It really is just so. When you're done, it seems simple enough. But while you're reading, you're like, oh man, I never thought of it like that. I think it just changes your mindset. So, Todd, you're the man of the hour. So please let me stop interrupting.
Oh, absolutely. So, originally, I was at college WVU, and I went to a class that Robert Kiyosaki and the company, it's called Rich Dad Education, was the name of the company. And I went to a class and I was like, wow, this really makes a lot of sense. So I actually went and flew down to Florida. They had an office in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, one of the branches for the Rich Dad Education side of the company. And I was real young, 23, 24 years old, just graduating college. I didn't leave until they hired me. I was like, I just believed in the concept so much that I went there the same day, stayed in a hotel, went back the next day, and went back again. And finally, they hired me and as a coach. And it was the best thing that's ever happened to me. And wouldn't be coaching doctors and dentists if it wasn't for me starting with Rich Dad. And tell you what, the most important thing kind of to understand about the whole Rich Dad philosophy and learning, what I've learned from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Robert Kiyosaki, is understanding investments. Before you could even be a coach, you have to understand how investments work. A lot of people understand, they know, hey, I'm going to get this return, I'm going to get that return, or are you really getting that return? What is your true return on that investment? And that's the biggest thing he taught me. And I really wanted to just kind of start today with just, hey, do you really understand your investments? And kind of talk about a few different investments. So for example, what are you guys investing in? What are some of the things you're doing, Dr. Walter, right now?
Well, stocks. You're investing in your own business. But I love stock. I'll be honest with you. I love stocks, and I'll tell you that real estate scares me, right? So I've been really looking into syndications. But yeah, let me see. What else do you invest in? Oh, my buddy, he started a whole collection on watches. And if anybody knows, when it comes to the price of watches like Rolex and stuff like that, I mean, the value. See, listen.
I invest in them as well.
Why am I talking? So again, I mean, these are little things that you don't think about, right? When you don't know. And now that I know, I'm like, man, I never thought about that. The fact that a Rolex could literally 3x in a few years. I mean, it's been booming recently, right, Todd? Like, this is what I'm hearing, I'm reading, and it's crazy. And you're like, a watch, really? But it's just a store of value. It's just the ability to just say, hey, I want, the demand is going to be there. Demand is always going to be there. So something like that, even Porsche. And we're talking the high end stuff here, right? But it could be anything, like Pokemon cards, like, you know what I mean? Like that's gone crazy. I remember at one point my brothers were, taking other kids' Pokemon cards, like, oh, I'll give you 5 for 1. And I'm like, I didn't realize my brothers were hustling, these kids, but it was true, right? You can find value in a lot of this, right? NFTs are big right now. I still don't understand them, but non-fungible tokens, to me, I'm just like, you just drew a picture and now you're selling it for millions of dollars, but people want it, So there's so many different things when it comes to investments, man.
Yeah, what about you, Dr. Dumper? What's your favorite investment right now?
I'm kind of the guy that likes to spread his eggs across multiple baskets. I've recently been doing maxing out I bonds because the inflation is super high. So they're paying at a little over 7% right now. I have getting into real estate with different companies through the REITs, where fundrise.com and there was Peak Group does. It's kind of a real estate hands-off approach, and then the traditional 401k stuff with stocks and bonds, and investing in the dental practice, because that's really the biggest dividend. Investing in equipment and upgrading everything, because that pays for itself, and that's been the biggest return I've gotten.
Absolutely. Well, luckily you got a great guy. Greg, a practice CFO. I know you work closely with him. He's got a great handle on what you're doing. But one of the things that Robert talks about is understanding cash on cash return. And I'm just going to explain it very simply, and then we're going to take a little deep dive into it. So cash on cash return is your total return net, right? Divided by your total investment. Okay. So if you invested $20,000 in a Pepsi Rolex watch and you got $30,000 back, well, what's your return on your investment on that?
10,000.
Yeah.
What's that?
10,000. 10,000.
10,000. Percentage wise, what would it be?
50%.
Yeah. 50%.
So yeah, 50%, right? So it's 50% return on investment. A lot of people don't even realize when they're putting money in different things, what their actual return on investment is. What is the safest overall? And I'm not going to bash on banks too much here because banks play a big role in what we do. But what is the safest investment for most people out there? Somebody that doesn't have the connections that you guys do, or understand NFTs, or have somebody that they work with, like Kyle, Dr. Kyle does there at Practice CFO. What's the safest investment out there right now?
I was going to say retirement, but I'm not even sure of anymore. The past 3 months have kind of said otherwise, but go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
Probably a CD.
Okay.
True. You're right.
CD.
Yeah.
So a CD is historically a CD, and in Robert's terms would be a certificate of death or a certificate of depreciation. But right now, just to give you an example, you're getting less than 1%. And if you invested in a CD, a lot of people, it's good for a lot of America, because they're going to spend that money if they don't invest, or they don't know how to invest properly or invest in the right things. They're not educated in it, right? But if you're getting, let's say, a 1% on a CD, the problem with that is, and with a lot of investments, is that money even liquid?
No,
it's not really. I mean, because if you pulled that money out, now you lose your interest, a little bit of 1% interest that you have. You pull the money out early. So it's not even liquid to be able to change it around. People could argue and say a Rolex isn't liquid, or, real estate's not liquid. Well, we can always sell it if we buy it at the right price. And kind of what you were just talking about, supply and demand, that's the valuation for everything in our lives, including real estate. I mean, if there's more supply, then there's less demand. What's going to happen to anything? Right. The prices are going to change.
Prices going to go up. Yeah.
So my thing is, and really, when how Robert taught me this, and how we really, and I still to this day believe in this, and it's how I even look at dental practices. You figure out your cash on cash return into something, but let's say you're getting 1% in a CD. You have $100,000. You're going to put 1% in a CD. Now, how much are you going to make in a year? How much extra money are you going to?
$1,000.
$1,000. Well, here's what most people don't realize. What's inflation?
7%.
But now it is. Yeah.
Historically, since 1915, it's been 3.4% per year, historically, since 1915. So if you're investing in a CD, think about this. If you're investing in a CD at 1%, or even something else that you're getting 2 or 3%, maybe something maybe a little more creative, and inflation historically, we're not even talking about what it is now, is at 3.5%. Your personal buying power and your personal net worth, in theory, is actually going down per year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the safest investment.
It's not, but for some people it is, because they're going to go spend that money. They don't understand the principles of investing, and they probably never read, obviously the Rich Dad Poor Dad book, or many other, financial books. So, I mean, CDs do serve their purpose. I don't want to get into a huge thing, but the CDs are great, because if banks didn't have the CDs and didn't have places, certificates of deposits, guess what? They wouldn't be able to lend money for all of us on dental practices and things like that. They're lending that money because they have to have that money coming in. So they're using that safe money, and they're using that to lend 10 times more than they're getting in. So that's why I love banks in some regards. And because, if we can actually use banks to our advantage. So we got to be creative with our money. So any entrepreneurs on here, any doctors that are listening here, I really encourage you to think about when we start talking about real estate, and you can use what I'm about to teach you guys and how to analyze this. You can use this on any business. I use it with my dentist that I work with right now when we're doing a merger and acquisition. I own several other companies as well. I'm constantly using how are we doing my cash on cash return. There's EBITDA, there's all these different terms, different things, but truly it comes down to, what is your actual cash on cash return going to be?
Right.
So I'm going to put you guys on the spot, and I know you guys never heard this before, but if I had to go buy a rental property and I had the cash, let's say I've owned more properties in Louisville, Kentucky in my life than I've owned anywhere else. I've never lived in Louisville, but it's a good Midwestern city that you've always been able to get good prices on real estate. It's always had a good economic development commission that's always been growing the area. They have really good landlord friendly laws compared to a lot of states. So I've owned more units in Louisville. And just a disclaimer, I did sell a lot of my real estate a little too soon, because I thought when COVID happened, I'm not going to lie, I thought that the market was going to have its correction sooner. I still think it may be coming, but that's a whole nother thing. But I started liquidating then, but I still liquidated good. But I mean, more units in Louisville. So I like Louisville, but you could buy a house for $70,000-$80,000 and you could rent it out for, let's say $100,000 a month. Just a really quick thing I'm going to teach you guys when you're looking at real estate. If you can looking at a rental property, and if you can just really quickly, if you look at the purchase price and you look at the amount of rent that comes in, if that is a 1%, we call it the 1% rule, then you know that you should, but there's still a lot more you need to do it. On the 1% rule, you should get about a 10% return on that investment. So if it's a $100,000 house, for you to get about a 10%, which I wouldn't recommend investing in anything, you know that you need to get that property needs to get about $1,000 a month in rental income. So I'm going to give you a really good resource here. There's a website. They have a free and a paid version, but you just need the free version for anything that anybody on here is doing. It's called Rentometer.com. I have no affiliation with them. It's just one a website that I use. I love it because when I'm looking at different areas, even your own areas with Rentometer, it analyzes all the active rental listings in that area. So you type in the address of the property you're looking at, and you'll see about what it'll come in, what it'll rent for per month. So then we can start figuring out, now we break it down, start figuring out our cash on cash return. That's kind of the starting point. We got to figure out what we're going to get in rent. Okay. So if you had the cash to buy that property, all cash, and didn't get bank financing, do you think your cash on cash return is going to be higher if you paid all cash for it, or if you went and got a loan from the bank? So where a lot of people get confused here. Think about this. You're buying an $80,000 piece of a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in a safe neighborhood, not a working class neighborhood, and you had the $80,000 cash. Are you better off paying cash for it, or are you better off putting 20% down and getting a loan?
Getting the loan.
Yeah, the loan. Because
you guys are right.
You can get 4 houses if they're all the
exactly
same. Right.
Yep, exactly. So let's kind of like just walk through. Let's walk through a property, like a sample property. Let's just say we were able to find one in a working class neighborhood. Let's say guys can write these numbers down. Let's just say $80,000 purchase price on a house.
Okay.
And I'm going to show, because a lot of people on this call are probably thinking, well, I would just pay cash for it. And I really want, the whole purpose of this is for you to maximize your investments. So I really would love for everybody on the call just to take these numbers down, listen to it, understand, hey, if you're at the end of the day, if you want to go pay cash for all your properties, that's your choice. Obviously you don't have a mortgage on it, but I think I'll at least give you a different perspective on why I don't like to pay cash or use all my cash on one deal, and how I've been able to acquire the amount of properties I have is because of a term called leverage. And so if we have an $80,000 house, let's say we go to Rentometer, and we say that property, let's just say, is going to be $800 in rent. That gets us our 1% rule.
Mm-hmm.
They're probably a little bit lower numbers right now with inflation. We could do, it'd probably be pretty hard to find a decent $80,000 house. You can do the same thing, 120, 1,200, whatever it's going to be. What's the first thing that has to get paid? Just so everybody understands all the expenses that are associated with their rental property.
Well, you have to pay your mortgage.
Mortgage. Well, really the first thing that has to get paid, no matter what, if you guys aren't going to be managing the properties yourself, when you have a property manager, they collect the money for you. They always pay themselves first.
Okay.
So that's how it works. If you
Yeah.
hire a property manager, they collect that money, then they're going to pull out their 10%. So now let's say typically on average, if you're in an area, most of the property managers are going to charge 10%. So now we're at 800. Now we're minus $80.
Can you break that down when it comes to property managers? Like, how do you really look for a good property manager, right? Because in my mind, a good property manager is to keep that tenant in the spot for as long as possible, right? Without high turnover, because I'm sure you're paying them every time they have to find somebody. So like, how do you make sure that you said 10%. How does that work out? Like, how do you find a property manager that could, benefit you?
There's another good website, and I don't want to throw a bunch of websites out there, but it's IREM.org. It's the International Real Estate Management Organization. And you can go in there and you can type the city that you're looking for properties, and it will tell you who's actually the certified property managers. It's better than some states. Like, I'm originally from West Virginia, and I have a lot of rental properties in Morgantown where the college is. Well, in Morgantown, you don't even have to be a licensed real estate agent to manage other people's properties. Somebody gets out of prison, whatever, they can start taking money right now, and they can advertise as a property manager. They don't even have to have an LLC set up in some states. Now in Pennsylvania, where I live now, you do have to be a licensed real estate agent to manage somebody else's property. Okay. So it's a state by state thing. But just because you go to real estate school, that doesn't mean that you understand how to manage money and manage somebody's properties and everything to do with it. I've been to real estate school. I was a licensed agent in Florida for a while when I was down there working for Rich Dad Education. And, they don't teach you anything about property management. There's some weekend classes, kind of like, you guys can go to a weekend class on an implant. Are you ready to do a full implant on somebody Monday, the day you get back from a 2-day CE class? Probably not, right? There's a lot more that goes to it. Right. And it's the same thing with like the people that say they're in property management. So, but if you go to IREM.org, I think it's .org, maybe .com, but .org. Okay, perfect. Yeah, should be able to type it in the city, and you should be able to get a good reference. That's what the first person I like to find in an area, because that's the start of what I call your power team. One of my other companies is actually called Power Team Advisors. I'm so big on power team because you can't be doing this stuff yourself. I can't be managing my properties. I can't be getting calls in the middle of the night. If I got a call about a toilet in the middle of the night with all my properties, my wife would probably hang me. So I can't do that. So you have to be, and same for you guys. You guys need to focus. Any dentist on here needs to be focused on their business. They cannot be focused on worrying about the little things about property management.
Right.
So that's the thing. You have to have a property management, and if the numbers don't work with a property management, don't buy it. If you can't hit what your minimum is going to be, then if you say you want a 14% minimum or whatever you make a commitment to yourself on, if you can't hit that, then don't buy it. You got to have all these expenses we're going to talk about. And the reason I'm going to go through this, some of it might seem a little basic, but I think that most people, if they're going to buy single family homes, they need to make sure that they're calculating for everything.
Right.
So we'll do our property management first. And if you get like in Louisville, I was actually down to about 5% on property management because we had a lot of units and they were managing a lot of them. So if you use by one or two, you're typically at 10%. Actually, and I haven't even seen what they're charging. I don't know if they've increased it with inflation. I haven't bought any properties in the last 14 months. So I don't know if trying to keep on holding out, but I don't know if they've even raised with everything else. So you got your property management first, then we got to pay our taxes.
Okay.
We got to pay our taxes. So on a house like that, let's just say maybe, I don't know, $600 a month or $600 a year, $1,000 a year. It's a little bit lower in Kentucky. It's not, I know in Texas there, you guys have super high taxes, but you guys don't pay the state income. So they make it up on the tax side.
They do, yeah.
On the property tax side, where Kentucky and West Virginia, some of these Midwestern states that have the highest cash on cash return for investments, they do have relatively low property taxes.
Okay.
Comparatively. So let's just throw, it's $500. So let's say $600 a year, divide that by 12. What's that? $50 a month in taxes.
Yep.
Okay. And then we got insurance, which is usually probably about $50 a month for a rental property. So we have insurance, and then we have repairs. We have to do a budget for repairs, and a lot of people don't really think about, oh my gosh, what's repair? So I always put a 10% budget in there at least. And that's on a property that's a good property that did good in the inspection. Now, you always get an inspection, right? And if you did a good home inspection, should tell you on there the estimated life expectancy of the roof. It should tell you the estimated life expectancy of the HVAC unit. So I always take that and I say, let's say if the roof's only got 3 years left, and I know a roof's going to cost $15,000, I'm going to add that in addition to the regular 10% repairs. I'll break that down over the next 3 years.
Okay.
So if I know an HVAC unit is going to cost me $7,000, I'll break that down over 3 years and start putting that in my repair fund or my separate escrow account that we keep together just for repairs.
So let me just kind of break that down, make sure it makes sense. So let's just say that you're collecting $12,000, right, a year, and you do all the numbers. Let me say you're putting $5,000 down a month for that $15,000 roof, correct?
So if we did, say the roof is $15,000 and
you broke it down over three. Yeah, over 3 years. That's
so
$5,000 a year.
Divided by 36 months, $416 a month I would budget in there.
Right. Yeah. If you do that per year, that's about 5,000. So the question is, so you're basically saying that be prepared for maybe the first few years to not be net positive based on what you're talking about so far.
It depends on your strategy. Absolutely.
Right. Okay.
Yep. And then you may not want to, or you go ahead and factor that in the total investment side of it, you factor that in the front. So instead of paying 80,000, your total investment into it's going to be 95. You could always look at it like that as well.
Right.
There's kind of two different ways you can kind of look at it.
Okay.
But depending on whether you're going what we call PCF, which is your positive cash flow monthly, or we can look at it as a part of our total investment. So there's two different ways you got to look at it. If we're going to put the money up front, or we're going to put it long term.
Right. Okay.
So let's just use 10% for now for the repairs. And let's say, so monthly it's 10%, it's another $80 a month in repairs. Now, the other thing is a lot of people, and I've never seen a broker that's advertising rental properties or apartment buildings. Apartment buildings, sometimes you can do some of the commercial brokers, but just regular rental properties, they don't factor in vacancies. You're going to have a vacancy allowance.
Right.
You have to have a vacancy allowance. I like to use 10% of a vacancy allowance as well, because if 10% a year on a vacancy allowance will give you approximately, 3 to 4 weeks a year, that property can be vacant.
Okay.
So that way you're using that number as is your vacancy allowance. You know that, hey, this property, even if a tenant moves out, as long as we hurry up and get it, the turnover, we call it turnover, get it painted, get it ready again, and then we know that, in 3 to 4 weeks, as long as if we're in a good area, that shouldn't be a problem anyway. Right. But that gives us a little bit of buffer. Now we know we're still going to hit our cash on cash return number. Okay. So let's say 80 for 10% on vacancies. All right. So now we should be able to figure out our PCF if we paid all cash for that property. So we got 800 in rent, right? $80 in property management. Let's say $50 in taxes. These are just an estimate. $50 in insurance. $80 in repairs. $80 in vacancies. What's that give me?
340.
Doc?
About 340. Yeah.
340 positive cash flow. So 340 a month. So now we take that number times it by 12. What's that give me?
Wow. Okay,
340 times
4,080.
Yeah.
4,080.
Yeah.
Okay. And now for me to get my cash on cash return number, I'm going to take that 4,080. Now I'm going to divide it by my $80,000 if I paid all cash for it.
0.95.
What is it?
5%.
5% return, 5% cash on cash return. So even on that number, there's not much there as most people would think there would be on that property.
Right.
Obviously, there's a lot that could go into this, but a lot of people would really fail to think about their repairs. They fail to think about the vacancies. And this is where people make mistakes in real estate. They're not factoring in property managers. They're not factoring in these things. I'm getting 20%. Well, I would guarantee you most of these people are saying 20%. If we really broke it down and included everything that we know is going to happen, these things are going to happen.
Right.
The 10% repairs, it's not going to happen every single month, but that year you're going to have hundreds of dollars in repairs. Something's going to happen.
Right.
Toilets are going, something's going to happen. There's even if you bought a brand new house, something's probably going to happen. It's not under one. Sorry, Doc. I wasn't poking there, but
God damn it. That's awesome. Go ahead.
So let's just really quick. Let's figure out that's 5% if you paid all cash.
Right.
So let's just take the same one. What's 20% of 80,000? Making you guys work today. You're going to do math.
What is that? 4,000?
20% of 80?
Yeah.
20%.
16,000.
16. Sorry. Yeah.
16,000. So you could probably go to a community bank, and I'm a big advocate for community banks. A lot of times versus your bigger like Bank of America, because it's different in real estate when you're owning properties than it is dental practices. A lot of times, your community banks, they keep the properties in-house, the loans in-house, instead of selling the loans on a secondary market. And as an investor, you can only get about 10 loans, real estate loans on the secondary market. Then it's really, really hard. So I'd like to go, I haven't been able to get loans on the secondary market for a while. Really like the small community banks. They do only lend in that area, but almost every community is going to have a small community banks that'll do deals at 20% down over 30 years. So I'm going to really quickly plug in on a mortgage calculator here. So our loan at 80,000 minus 16. So we're getting a loan for 64,000. What's my payment on that? Let's just say that's going to be a little bit higher than the interest rates just rose, but interest on investment property, you're going to be at least probably 1% higher. Let's just say at 5.5. Let's see what this is. On 5.5 interest or 5% interest on this one. So it's like 344 on this one. So that's your P&I is 344. So for example, on this one, I probably wouldn't even be doing this deal. Because now you have your P&I at 344, you're probably going to be breaking even on this property when you're factoring everything in. So now you would know, hey, I got to get a better property that's more than this if I'm going to cover all my expenses. So, but typically you will see that you're going to get a much better return when you are financing from a bank.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I was just looking at
No, I'm sorry. So what you just did right there was actually pretty cool because you broke everything down. And then by looking at that, you basically made a decision in 5 minutes, whether or not you wanted to buy this property. You didn't have to waste time going to look at the property. You basically eliminated this property. You said, I don't have time. I'm going to go ahead and you do the numbers. The numbers can't lie. You basically said hard, fast, no, I'm done. I'm moving on from this property. It wasn't, oh, well, it has beautiful curb appeal, or you didn't waste time doing any of that other stuff.
Exactly.
Right? And I think, and I feel like that's what we do whenever we're novice to anything. We're like, well, let's go look at it and see if we like it. Maybe the neighbors are nice people, and you know what I mean. Like you didn't even do that. You didn't waste your time at all.
Absolutely, and I totally agree. That's what you need to be doing. You guys don't need to focus on, it's nice to have properties that really, ideally, nobody should ever know that you have that property anyway. If you're doing the right in asset protection, the last thing you guys want as a doctor is to have your personal name on a house anyway. So are you going to brag about the house that you have for rent? No, that's not the purpose of having the rental properties, right? So what does it matter what what those kind of things are? The numbers is what you need to care about as a true investor and anything. And I use the same strategy for everything I'm looking at. What's my true cash on cash return going to be? If I'm going to put this money out, what's my return going to be? And this is where, like you mentioned, I find it a little interesting, and I haven't got into NFTs or anything like that yet. I don't understand them yet because I can't figure out what my cash on cash return is. I can't figure out what the supply and demand is. So I struggle with it. There's a lot of people making really good money. But I'm still, I do a lot of investing. I'm still pretty conservative because I have to know what going into the investment, typically what it's going to be.
Yeah.
What advice? Yeah, go ahead, Kyle.
I was going to say the problem that I struggle with all that stuff too, and everybody's talking about digital real estate in the metaverse now. I think we're seeing those single things that jump out, like, oh, this person just bought $450,000 to live next to Snoop Dogg in the virtual universe, and it's all you hear about these extravagant things with the NFTs also, like this person bought it for $1,000 and it's selling for $5 million now because that's the value that somebody put on it, but that doesn't mean the value is going to stay like that.
Well, I mean, Kyle, you got to understand, like, you see the halftime show, Snoop Dogg killed it.
He did. That was an awesome halftime show.
I would live next to Snoop Dogg because, I mean, I don't know, Kyle. You might want to use another example. No, I'm messing
live by Snoop Dogg in the metaverse, though.
Right? Yeah.
But no, I agree with you, Todd. It's the value that people put in it, and traditionally there's value. People need a place to live, and that's why real estate is so attractive. That there's only so much real estate. There's other than building new real estate, but everybody needs a place to live. So that's one of those things that is always going to go up in value. Where all the new stuff is just how much are people going to value it and for how long.
Todd, can I ask you a question?
Mention something. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said, can I ask you a question after you answer this too? I want to talk about like new investors coming into the market for real estate, but then having to deal with someone as big as BlackRock, who is basically buying every real estate. I mean, these companies have billions of dollars, and you're competing against companies like that. How do you basically convince someone like myself who's new to this to stick in with this? Like, how do you compete against big companies like that? That doesn't make any sense. I think Zillow was trying to do the same thing.
Well, look what happened to Zillow. Do you guys see what happened to Zillow?
Yeah.
They lost a lot.
Zillow's gone because they were overpaying, and the market hasn't even corrected, and Zillow's gone. So, I mean, it truly, as an individual person that is investing, it does take some work. You got to, it's the same thing as, like, I always tell people when they're looking to buy real estate, you're going to see properties on the market, like on the MLS, but the MLS is like, think about it like this. MLS is like Walmart. So, right. It's the retail market. If you're buying anything at retail, it's really hard to sell it at wholesale, because you go to Walmart, buy something and go sell it at Amazon. Right. Probably not. Right. You would need to find a way to buy that at a wholesale price to be able to really make money on that.
And for those that don't know, MLS explain what it is.
The MLS is the multiple listing service.
Right.
So if in realtor.com, so anything on realtor.com is listed by a real estate agent. And that's when you go to realtor.com, that's what they call the MLS, the multiple listing service. And that's where most people in a good market, like right now, they put it on the MLS, because why would they sell it any other way when they could put it on the MLS, get the most exposure, create a bidding war, and get higher prices than they're ever going to get right now. So, so I'm not recommending, the people I work with in investing right now, we're really, really, really cash heavy right now and waiting for the correction to happen. Instead of going competing against people that's easy to get mortgages right now, competing against everybody right now. So if you're cash heavy right now, when this market starts to correct, it's going to have to, at some point, there's going to have to be, because interest rates are going to go up, inflation's going up, people aren't going to be able to afford the mortgages and the houses. So there's got to be a point where there's going to be a correction. So if you get yourself in a cash heavy position, you're going to be able to get discount properties. Back in 2010, we were buying what they call REOs, which are bank owned properties. That's after the foreclosure happened. Banks were liquidating homes. We were buying homes in Cape Coral, Florida for $100 a square foot. And that includes the land. This is 2010. It's not that long ago, 12 years ago. And that was kind of at the bottom of after the last correction. I went through the last correction. I was started in investing in 2005. And so I started investing right at the peak before. So I saw it go up, I saw it go down, and I saw a lot of people make money, lose money, and people making money again, and people making not good decisions with their money again, like it was happening back then. But if you can hold on, there's going to be what we call a wholesale market. That wholesale market could be anything from what we call a short sale. That's what some of these people that get in these loans, and then maybe they lose a job. Something happens, they lose a job, then they owe more on the house than the house is worth. So we can go in, negotiate with the bank, and be able to get a little bit off that principal. And we're creating wholesale scenarios. There's a lot of ways you can do that.
So what do you tell somebody who, you just said you have to be heavy on cash, but that cash, I'm sure you want that money to make you money. So where do you tell them to put their cash in? If CDs are, we already talked, CDs are definitely not the way to go. So where would you tell them to put their cash so that it's still liquid enough for a good deal to come along for you to pick it up?
They need to find somebody like Greg, a practice CFO, or somebody like that that's really good at putting things like in some of the bonds and things like that. I have a financial broker that I work with that does some of that management for me. So when I say I'm cash, it is at a point where it's easily accessible, but I'm getting like 7-8% on it. So I'm still barely breaking even on most of my cash with inflation, which I don't like, because I don't feel like I'm growing. One of the whole Rich Dad philosophies that I've always learned is you've got to be growing every year. And this is probably, to be upfront honest, probably one of the first years I've made money and I've grown that way, but my money hasn't made a ton of money because I liquidated my real estate, just because knowing that it's going to have, this market's going to have some kind of correction.
Right. So
I think the biggest thing is to be educated on it. And one thing I didn't talk about is I did not talk about appreciation. Some people will say, well, you're not factoring in. I know there's somebody that's going to be listening to this podcast and be like, well, he's not factoring in appreciation. The appreciation to me is a bonus. That's not factoring in your cash on cash now. Appreciation is a bonus. If it happens, it happens. But you buy the property based on the cash flow now. You don't buy a property because you think it's going to go up in so many years. That's never how I'm never going to buy a property. I'm buying it based on what it's doing today.
And so
some people will say, well, your cash on cash return, you need to factor in, add 3% a year for average appreciation. Well, if they did that right now on a property, do they really think it's going to be in 2-3 years from now, it's going to be 9% higher than today? Maybe.
All right. What are the tax, or do you know what the tax strategies are as investing in real estate compared to some of the other traditional investments of stocks, bonds? Is there any benefit there?
Oh, there definitely is. And that's where it's all part of, like I said, about the power team with the right property manager. They need to get a really good CPA that understands investing, and really good person on their team that can go through that. There's a lot of different ways, creative ways to structure real estate. If you're making too much income, maybe you need to buy a second home in a place that's, there's not going to maybe make a ton of money for you in a cash on cash return. But again, I'm going to leave that question up to your CPA and your personal But yes, you are going to be able to, there is some really good strategies, some good depreciating strategies and ways to help your tax benefits as well.
So let me ask about, again, I work with patients all day, every day, right? And I love my patients and everything. But if I had a choice, and if I could just work where like I had a robot in front of me, I'd probably do that because it's more predictable. People are not predictable, right? So you have a house and you're loving it. The money's coming in because you've done your numbers and everything. Then let's just say they leave, but destroy your house, and that 10% didn't account for them, right? So how do you make sure that your management, because you're not trying to deal with that. So your management people know what to do and how to do. Like, how do you vet for management? I guess is what I'm asking, so that that, hey, they've dealt with this situation before.
I mean, obviously you're going to go referrals, but even going back to that, the website, if somebody is certified in it, they've actually went through extra training in this. They're not always going to be perfect. But I definitely feel like you're going to get the best. I mean, just like not every dentist is perfect. There's some that are better than others. And it is going to be the same thing. So it would be kind of the same vetting process, the credentials, what they're looking at their portfolio. And I always ask for, several referrals when I'm going into a property management company of investors that they work with that own other properties in an area. Because a lot of property managers don't have Google reviews or things like that. Like we'd like to, like our patients look at, like when they're looking at one of a doctor.
Now, you mentioned briefly that, with the cash on cash return that you're looking at real estate, you're applying that to any of your other investments also, and you're getting into, you own several other businesses. Is that something where you think is a viable investment opportunity versus dealing with real estate, just getting into different businesses to invest in?
Absolutely. And that is one of the things that I'm looking at right now, is investing in other companies, because I do have some extra cash right now and I do want to invest it. So we're looking at buying some companies that aren't doing so well. Just like in when COVID hit, there's a lot of dentists that didn't reopen, right? The merger and acquisition market in dentistry was there's more action in that market in the last 18 months than there has been, at least everyone always tells me, than there has been in a long time. So, I think it's the same thing. There's a lot of businesses that haven't been surviving, but I know that if they had the right C-level team, the right power team members, they could survive. So there's some other things. I definitely would encourage anybody to look at their cash. And if they're going to put in any cash outlay, what is that return really going to get you? The same thing with I tell my clients, if you're going to look at a merger and acquisition, if you have to do an outlay of cash, what are you looking at? What are we going to get in return for this? And that's when we really get some of the creative fortune strategies. When we're doing merger and acquisitions, we like to do earnouts to make it a win-win and kind of have both people. So it's not one person that's going to win. Both parties have to win in a lot of the deals that we structure when we're doing dental mergers.
Now, when you talk about different businesses, this is what I have in my head. Do you guys watch the Ozarks?
Shark Tank? Oh, the Ozarks.
On Netflix.
Mm-hmm.
Todd, you ever see
what
that?
show is it?
Ozarks. The Ozarks.
Oh, Ozarks. Yeah, the money laundering.
Yeah.
They're always buying up these small, underperforming little businesses, and they use it to clean the drug money to run through. But it's basically that they're looking at the numbers, and I mean they're puffing up the numbers with drug money running through it. But that's basically what they're doing, right? They're looking at a small business and ways that they can make the numbers work to launder this drug money through. But
we don't encourage anybody to.
I'm not encouraging. I'm just that's what's running through my head with investing in businesses.
we just got back to the podcast. Let's not get canceled immediately because you spent some time. You spent some time watching Ozark. Okay, let's not do that. All right. Back to other questions. minus Kyle's side gig. When it comes to getting people invested or excited about real estate, if you had to put top, I don't know, three reasons why you should do real estate versus stock market, right? Because we've been sold that stock markets are kind of like your retirement tool, right? But when I talk to somebody like yourself, or when I talk to other people who are really big into real estate, they're like, no, real estate is my retirement because I can control for that, and it's a little more predictable in a way, right? I mean, we had the 2008, 2009, but they're like, well, look at how many crashes we had in the market. You know what I mean? So talk about like, what are your reasons? If you had to give me a reason, somebody that's not really, I'm kind of shaky on real estate. What are your reasons why I should really start focusing on real estate?
Well, Doc, I think depending on who you're talking to, you're going to see like graphs that show, hey, the stock market since 1910's been here, real estate's went up the same. Some people are going to give you, all kinds of different examples. And, if you can pay attention to the stock market and you know when to get in and when to get out, I guess, some of the longer term strategies I know work really, really well. I've always been a real estate guy myself. I feel like I can control that more so than I can the stock. I think it goes back to that's probably the main reason for me. I like to be in control of that. And I like to have the actual hard assets. And one thing I haven't even mentioned that I do still have a bunch of, there's a whole nother side of the real estate business that a lot of people don't even realize. And we don't have a ton of time to get into this, but there's a paper side of the business where you can be the bank on the properties. That's even kind of better because then if you're the private mortgage holder, if you're being the bank, then we call it the 3 T's. Now you don't got to worry about tenants, turnover, or toilets. You don't have to worry about any of those for your property manager. So I do have a lot of paper, and I've had it for a while, and I call that paper. That's the paper side of the business. So somebody lives in the house, but again, there's not a whole lot of new paper being created on the private market right now because of the real estate market currently. But if we start having another correction, that's another way. I really like that. I think real estate is a great way if you're flipping properties. If you buy it right, you're going to be able to make a good chunk of change quickly if you know what you're doing. But again, nothing's as easy as HGTV makes it look like. And I think that's where a lot of people get excited about real estate is because, hey, oh my gosh, look what they did. And they made so much money so quick, so fast. It's not that glamorous. And if you're looking at it from a numbers perspective, I can't give you a glamorous answer, Doc, because it's not glamorous. It's numbers for me. It's numbers. It's predictable numbers. And it's predictable numbers for me. It's predictable numbers because I can control those numbers. I can't control what Boeing's going to do and affect the Dow. I can't control yes, there is. There's extent. And I know that, a lot of really good financial advisors are going to diversify. And both of you mentioned about how you guys diversify. And I think that's important in anybody's strategy. I don't just invest in real estate. I invest, like I said, in paper side of the real estate. In real estate, I still have some stocks. I still have mutual funds. So I think diversification at the end of the day is the most important thing. So I think for somebody like you, I would tell you the main reason you need to do it, Doc, is because of diversification. What happens if the stock market does? You need to diversify your portfolio. And why wouldn't you have real estate, something that is always growing, something that it can never make anything more of? We can always make more companies. There are always new companies coming in for doing IPOs, right? So real estate's one thing. Yeah, we're going to keep building real estate, but there's only so much land. And I do feel like, especially too, if it's in good areas, you're going to be fine. You never want to buy in a war zone. Those type of things, people that struggle with real estate, people that talk bad about real estate, a lot of times they do it because they bought in an emotional time. They bought in too high. They bought in for an emotional reason versus a true number reason. And if you get in real estate and truly buy the numbers like I'm talking about here, you're not going to have those emotional hiccups you're going to have.
Now,
so let's.
One more question. How do you find those properties? Because like you said, the MLS is basically the Walmart of real estate. So what is a good resource to finding good real estate? Is it finding the right real estate agent that will give you tips or tip you off that this property is coming to market before it's listed? Or is it like you mentioned, you really haven't spent a whole lot of time in Louisville, Kentucky, but you've had a lot of property there. How are you finding those properties? Are you just searching online and seeing what's available through MLS or Zillow or something?
Great question. There's not a whole lot of wholesale deals out right now. That's why I haven't been buying, just because of the market. So because the demand's so high for all real estate. When a market starts to turn, you are going to see what's called lis pendens, or notice of defaults, that are filed. That's when somebody starts to miss a payment. There's a term called, depending on the state's foreclosure process, it's either a lis pendens or a notice of default. And when that happens, those are public information. Somebody's technically in foreclosure when they're 31 days late on their payments. That is a public filing. There's some different sites and stuff you can see online that when somebody starts to go late on their mortgage, and then you can easily do your research. A lot of different real estate softwares out there. I'm not going to promote any one, but there's a lot of real estate softwares out there that you can say, okay, this is what the valuation is. And so their valuations are typically a little bit better than your Zillow's estimates. I'm not a big fan of Zillow's made up value numbers a lot of times. I wish my houses were worth what Zillow says my houses are worth. But there's, you got to figure out what your house is worth, what the house is going to be worth, and figure out what you can get it for. And, if somebody overpaid for the house, really the only way you're going to be able to get that at wholesale is by doing a short sale, is getting the bank, because you're still not going to pay what they're going to pay. And that's a whole another process that you guys probably haven't heard that term in 10, 12 years, because that really hasn't been around when the market's going up. That's one way. Probates. I've got a lot of deals through probates. There's what's called probate attorneys. Those are people estate deals. They have to actually close the estate out, so you can actually, that's another public filing. You can get that public information when a house is in probate. You work with a probate attorney. Hey, we'll take this off your hands for this price, and then you can close out the estate. You don't have to go through everything else in the deal. So those are just a couple little things that we like to do. I mean, there's obviously the same thing we do in mergers and acquisitions. If we target an area we really like, we'll send out letters. The same exact way I help my clients out in my dental offices out, is we send out letters. Hey, if you're looking to sell, we are buyers. Just getting your name out there as a buyer. So, hey, before you decide to list it with a real estate agent, pay 6%, because that's typically what they have to pay, because the seller of a real estate is the one that pays the buyers and the seller side. But people don't realize that it comes out of the seller side, not the buyer doesn't really technically pay. And say, hey, contact us first, so let us at least make an offer. Then you don't have to go through that whole process of getting it ready, showing it all the time. And so again, these strategies don't work as well today. We're sitting here February 20th, 2022, just because the market is so hot. You can put any house, at least in Pittsburgh here right now, and you can put any house on the market right now, and you have an open house, and you're going to have 40 people there. There was one in our neighborhood just today that was started at 10 o'clock, and there was people waiting to go in there at 10 a.m. this morning. So that's why I'm not been, extremely active in the real estate market. I think there's going to be a time, so people, at least that they can start learning, hey, let's practice and run some numbers. I encourage everybody on here just to practice running their numbers, develop your own Google Docs sheet or your own spreadsheet and figure out, okay, hey, I know I got to factor in rent. I'm not going to manage it myself, taxes, insurance, your repairs, and your vacancies. And if you're not happy with 10%, adjust the repairs to what you need to be, but you have to have it in there. Right. Don't let anybody talk you out of it. Any agent or anybody else talk you out of counting that number in your expenses.
And the last question from me is, what resources would you use for a newcomer? Like, what resources would you recommend a newcomer look into when it comes to beginning their journey with real estate? Books, podcasts, I mean, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's a website called Bigger Pockets. It's a good place. It's like anything though. There's some people that are really knowledgeable, and there's other people that don't know what they're talking about. So you got to really kind of sort through what's good and what's not good on there. I mean, it's a forum. There's some good resources on there. I definitely, anytime you can, Robert always has podcasts and stuff too. I mean, that's another good source on there. I'm trying to think of some other ones that are out there. There is, Dean Graziosi is another one that has a pretty good real estate program out there as well.
So I said I already asked my last question, but this is really my final one, because I see a lot of commercials on investing in gold and silver right now, and they always have a little snippet of Robert Kiyosaki saying, "I love silver." How much does he really like investing in silver, and is that a good investment, in your opinion?
He's always talked about precious metals. I don't know where he's at, what his position is currently. I really don't. I do have some gold and silver bars. It's something I keep. I probably should
physical asset. The physical
I have
asset.
the physical assets. Yep.
Cool. That's awesome.
I have the physical assets.
Yeah.
We have some of the little gold bars even in a safety deposit box, and you can even just start by getting some of the silver coins. Just little things like that somebody could start doing, and that's something too. That's I think that's something that's always going to be around as well. But again, I'm not huge into it. I have an ETF that's in like iSilver, or I can't remember what it is, but I know in my portfolio too, I have an ETF that's just silver that's done decent over the years as well. So there's different ways you can get in gold and silver, but I can't speak for him or anybody else. Especially now that I work with doctors. I'm with Fortune Management now, so I'm not even with Robert anymore, but he's been a great influence in my life.
Well, is there anything that you wanted to cover that we didn't get a chance to ask you about?
I think I've probably covered more than you guys wanted me to. I always tend to talk too much.
No. This was great because in the end, you want to get people going in the right direction. And I think this podcast is here to try to get people to understand that 9 to 5 dentistry or 7 to 7 or whatever you do in dentistry should just be one avenue to basically get into that retirement age where you're comfortable and you're happy. You're not just grumpy old, 80-year-old dentist still working and then going, when the heck am I going to retire? I mean? That's the last thing we want to do. We want to basically get people to retire as early as possible, or at least do dentistry for the fun of it. I mean? It sounds crazy when I say it, but it truly is just, you should be doing it for the fun of it because you don't need it. You want to do it. And those are probably the best dentists out there, not the grumpy ones, or the ones that are building houses. Like, you don't want those people, And
that's where Fortune Management comes in, and they want you to come from a place of abundance and not from a place of need with the work that you're doing.
So go ahead and sum it up.
I called out Walter in his miserable time building his house.
That was actually, I don't think you did that on purpose, but it was like so perfect. I was like, man, that sucks. That sucks, what I mean? But it's all good. It's all good. And then I have guests here.
Hello.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, my little ones are telling me I gotta get off. So
well, thank you so much, Todd.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You gotta come back on just at least, once in a while, just to kind of motivate these dentists, motivate us, man. What I mean? Like, just motivate us and get us to start thinking differently.
One more time for everybody that didn't listen to the last podcast, how can people reach out about Fortune Management or what you're doing, Todd?
Yeah, so you can always email me, Todd King at fortunemgmt.com, Todd King at fortunemgmt.com. Like I said, I still coach dentist, and I still do my real estate and stuff on the side. So
awesome. Thank you so much again, Todd.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys.
All right. Bye.
See ya.